Hello again. In this time we will try to look at the timeline H5P content, and in order to do that I will go to the H5P editor, and in this case I prepare this content in advance. So I will open an existing H5P content that I call timeline here. So I select the file in my computer, and I will see that it's open right on the settings. So has many of the or almost all the the content in H5P. There is a need to have a name for that content, and in case of the timeline, it's starting asking us for a headline. So in this case, is about the story of our Go Global program. Here you can add some text describing what is all about this timeline, for example, and you can define the level of zoom here. As a default is 0, but as long as I already add here three different areas of the history of the program, we will look at what those areas are. These 5, it's a good level of zoom in to look at the different areas, not all together. I will show you what happens if we change this number later on, but well, after that we can add a background image for our timeline and define how huge the height of that image has to be. And if we want to add some assets for this part, the first view of our timeline, we can add some media here. And it's difficult to say what URL will work and what not. In my experience, yeah, all those here are supported, it's true, but sometimes even there is chance to work with other kind of URLs, for example, a PDF document which is public, it will work too, in my experience. So there are more possibilities, not only the ones that are described here. In this case, I put our explanatory video in YouTube here, and I can add the credits of that media and a short caption here to explain what is that media about. And then the second part of the timeline is starting with the dates. So what are those events we want to add, or items we want to add to the timeline? So in this case, I just put two events. We can at least we have to add the year, but if we want to specify the date what this thing happens, we can add it in this format. The year using 4 digits, the month using 2 digits, and the day using also 2 digits for that. After that, we have to write there a headline, a brief description, which is a very simple text editor, but with the possibility to make lists and also including some links there, so which is kind of a good way of doing some interactive content there. We can add some tags here, which will help the people to find some information easily in our timeline. And for every single event, we can add also assets like videos or media, whatever we want. It will be the same than in the first case. If we want, we can also add a thumbnail, which has to be 32 for 32 pixels, and the credits of that media, and the caption again. So here I add two different events, and even here the example of adding those assets, I use the link directly to the do-it-yourself manual that we create as an interactive presentation in Google Docs, and surprisingly worked, and that's really nice. So I will show you now the preview, but before that, just look at the areas here below. We finished with the different dates that we add here. We can add more events in our timeline by clicking here and add all those information, but at least we have two events here, and then they can be areas. So these areas are periods of time. We have to define, or at least to select the starting of that period if it's not finished. But those are thought to be represented as periods, as long periods of time. So I will show you what I mean. In this case, I had three of them, three periods of time, three areas, and every single of that has to be a starting and ending point, the name, some text describing that area, and it's possible to add tag here. Here is not possible to add assets like for the events like itself, like videos or extra media. But how is this look like in the reality? So I will switch to view mode, and we will see that here is starting with the title of our timeline. Originally we are not in the zoom out, but we are able to look here. The first area here, which is called Go Global Garden Pilot Project. The second one in red is Go Global Reclaim the Rubbish. And if I scroll here, I will look that here is the Go Global Do It Yourself area, where here is a presentation, right? So this is the way we can look at the information that we create on the settings of that. Every single event will show here in the timeline, but also if we navigate linearly on this, we will look at the different events. Here is missing all. This event doesn't have any asset, but the next one is exactly the example that I told you. Even we are able to embed this kind of presentation, which is great because are totally interactive by itself here, and it's nice. It's just very simple. That's the example that I want to show you. Obviously, we will continue putting more events on our history. This is not the whole history of the program at all. This is just an example of how this H5P timeline content work a little bit. I hope that helped you to create more timelines by yourself. And if you have any comments or question, keep it below, write it below in the box. Just to show you what is this number about, if I change it and I put 0, which is the default, you will see that you are totally zoomed out, and you cannot really read what are those names for the areas. So that's why I choose that number specifically. You have to go a little bit doing a zoom it as a default, because in another way the people cannot read what is here. And that's happened when the areas or the events are separate in time, as in this case by years, for example. So I just recommend you to play a little bit with the numbers. Maybe 3 is a good number you can look at here. Okay, now the names are looking fantastic, and you can notice that there are more than one area and that the people is. But in my case, I thought it's nice to have a 5 here in order to don't show all the areas, but starting with 1, 2, and maybe give the idea that if they go forward, they will find some more information. So that's the point. I hope that helped you to find um, a good way to do your timelines. And as I said, if you have questions, please leave some comments below. Have fun doing your timeline in H5P by Lumi. Ciao, ciao.